Hey guys, what's going on? Hi. This is another video. Look at us go here. This is going to be a really fun one. I'm going to count down my 10 favorite Stephen King books to date. I've read about, I think I'm coming up to about 20 of them. And I made this list about a year ago, maybe not quite that, maybe like 10 months ago. And it has obviously significantly changed because I've read quite a bit more Stephen King since then. And excited to share kind of my top 10 list with you. A few things right off the bat. I'm currently reading The Stand. So I know if there's some hardcore Stephen King fans coming in here, they're going to be waiting to see The Stand on this list, probably pretty high up on this list. It's not going to be on this list because I'm still currently reading it. I have this crazy cool copy here that I've been reading. Someone was nice enough to send me this, and I've been feeling kind of sick this week, so I'm feeling better today, but still kind of like trudging along, and it's been a little tough to read. So I'm only about 100 pages in, which you might say like, wow, 100 pages, that's for a book, that's you're getting there. That's less than 10% of this book. Which is kind of like, holy crap. So it's kind of just in the entry level phase of this book, but I can tell you it's incredible. It's everything I hoped it would be and more. The character development in this book so far, again, I'm only 100 pages in, but it is something else. It is something else. Really, really impressive. How we're going to do this, I'm just going to go from 10 to 1, and we're just going to have a good time about it. I'd love for you guys to guess what you think the number 1 book is going to be, or guess through the whole top 5. And I would also love to see what your favorite Stephen King books are, even if you've only got like 1 or 2, or if you have a top 5 you want to throw in the comments, or if you want to do like a full top 10. I love reading that stuff. I love seeing what other people's favorite Stephen King books are. So that would be awesome if you want to do that. I'm going to drink this lemongrass tea throughout the way just to survive. You know what I mean? It's really good. It's really good. I got that at the Cannon. If you're also in Hamilton, it's that place on Ottawa. Cars keep driving into it, but it's really good. It's really good. Okay, so we're going to start with number 10. I don't want to give anything away here. This isn't in any list, so this is not going to indicate if you're trying to like guess. This is no indication. I'm going to push this off to the side, and we're going to get going here. If I can push this out of camera. Oh my gosh, I probably can't even. I'm a pretty ill-prepared YouTuber. I'm learning. Oh my god. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put him down here. And then... Okay, that's what we're going to do. Oh, look at how clean and fresh. Okay, so number 10. Throw out your guesses, because number 10 is On Writing. On Writing by Stephen King is a book that I really, truly love. It's actually the only Stephen King book that I've read twice so far. I did once, paperback, and then once on audio. The audio, he narrates himself, so it's fantastic. And this is a book that is about writing. It's about the craft of writing. It's about him kind of, letting go of some of his secrets to writing a good book, and kind of sharing some of his rules for writing a good book. And that you might hear that and think like, well, I'm not a writer, so that doesn't interest me at all. I do have dreams of being a writer. I've tried to write a number of times, but not a writer by any stretch of the imagination. And I love this. The first half of this book is actually just about his life. It's just about his childhood, his upbringing. Some really, really fun, intimate, and funny, and very Stephen King-y stories about his upbringing and his life. Kind of like made me kind of appreciate him that much more, I think. Just kind of seeing where he came from, and some of the stories of how his books came to be were just utterly fascinating. Like the Carrie one sticks out for me the most. Living in a trailer, I believe he wrote Carrie, which was his first book. Didn't think it was any good. Threw the manuscript in the trash, and his wife Tabitha pulled it out of the trash, read it, and was like, "You got to finish this. This is really good." And so he did, and the rest is history. And so the second half is just all writing tips, and again, even if you're not a writer, just it's so interesting, it's so engaging to read that you're gonna love it, writer or not writer. So On Writing is number 10. I really really recommend checking that out. Okay. Number 9. So I had a hard time with this. There are a few books like the 10, 9, 8 spot. I was like, because I don't want to give any spoilers, but there there are a couple books that aren't on this list that I really loved that I was like, I can't believe I'm not putting that in the list. And I'll throw those ones out at the end and kind of let you know which ones I was kind of bummed about not including, but that's that. And I should also mention too, there's no Dark Tower books on this. I've only read the first 3 Dark Tower books and I love them, but I'm not going to include any Dark Tower books in this list. I'm going to save the Dark Tower until I finish it. Okay, so next up, number 9. Guess what? Salem's Lot. We got Salem's Lot. Some of you might be surprised to see this that low. I think number 9 is a good spot. You know, it's in my top 10. That's good. And I really love this. Honestly, it's about vampires. You know, what can go wrong? It's his second book actually that ever came out right after Carrie, and to me that is so impressive because this book is really, it screams, you know, veteran author. I couldn't. That's really all I can say about it. Is my voice good? Like I feel like I'm losing my voice. We fine here? Yeah. I'm not going to say a whole lot about this one. It's a vampire story. It's great. Haunted hill on a haunted house on a hill. Character development is really good. I've heard that if you're going to read The Dark Tower, this is one that you got to read because there's a lot of characters that kind of reintroduce themselves in the Dark Tower series. But yeah, if you like vampires and you like a good classic kind of horror flick, Salem's Lot is gonna please you for sure. So that's my number 9. Number 8. Again, I don't know if this one's gonna come as a surprise, but number 8 is Doctor Sleep. Doctor Sleep is number 8. I really enjoyed this one. To be honest with you, had always heard of Doctor Sleep and didn't realize that it was a sequel to The Shining. I just didn't know that. I thought Doctor Sleep was like its own kind of thing. I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like this is kind of before I became a reader, and then once I started reading last year, I feel like also I gotta stop mentioning like, yo, so I did just start reading books last year. Like that's probably getting old, right? We get it. Shut up, you know what I mean? But yeah, Doctor Sleep is a fantastic sequel. I was lucky enough, again, because this is all fresh to me. I read The Shining for the first time, and then right after read Doctor Sleep. So I got to do like a 1-2 punch. Everything was fresh and exciting and fun. And I thought this was an incredible sequel. So well done. The bad guys were perfect. I thought they were actually like pretty freaky, and I thought the tie-in with Danny and the new characters were just so well done. You know, it was a totally engaging book. And yeah, just instant classic. I have not watched the movie. I've heard that the movie is actually quite fantastic with Ewan McGregor, I believe. I've not seen it yet. It's kind of one of those things where this book exists kind of really nicely in my mind and I don't want to wreck it. But a lot of people say that the movie is really, really good. So I'm feeling good about that. Number 8, Doctor Sleep. Okay, number 7. See if you can guess it by the color of the... God, I'm still getting used to this. Okay, ready? Number 7 is The Eyes of the Dragon. The Eyes of the Dragon is one of the few pure fantasy books that Stephen King's ever written, and it is killer. Like, it is just a killer book. I didn't know really what to expect jumping into this one. I was in fantasy mode. I think I had just read The Way of Kings or something like that, or I can't remember, one of those books, and I was like, yeah, let's see how Stephen King handles this kind of stuff, and it is just ultra fun, and it's pure, like I said, it's just a pure fantasy book. There's no fluff, there's no like horror, there's no kind of like, you know, there's no obvious Stephen King-y things thrown in. It's a very just to the point from beginning to end fantasy, and super underrated book. I think I really enjoyed this one. I think that if you are a big fantasy fan and maybe haven't read much Stephen King and you want to get into it, why not start with Eyes of the Dragon? I think it's a great one. And yeah, I was happy to find this old kind of printing of it too. I had this kind of really crappy new issue of it, and look at how nice that is. So cool. Anyway, 7, Eyes of the Dragon. Okay, 6. This is where things get a little bit more clearer. I'm like, well, this makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense. Okay, so number 6, we have The Long Walk by Stephen King or Richard Bachman, however, whichever name you want to use. It's one of the Richard Bachman books. It's Stephen King's. What do you call that again? Pseudonym, alternate name. When he was trying to basically, he was writing too many books, and they were like, well, why don't you try a pseudonym, and so he went with Richard Bachman. Although there's also stories that he wanted to prove that he could write popular books with that didn't have the Stephen King name on it, and people would still love it. That's also a part of the story as well. And so this was one of them, The Long Walk. This is a great one, guys. This is like just so. There's something very like nostalgic feeling about this one. It's kind of like a murder parade. You know what I mean? You've got this group of dudes, young dudes, that are basically thrown into this competition, this life or death competition, where they just got to walk until they can't walk anymore. And when you can't walk anymore, well, you'll see. Bad things happen, and it's really entertaining. I could not put it down. It's not crazy long. I think this one is, well, it's 350, 400 pages. Big margins though. So The Long Walk. It's the only Richard Bachman book that I've read, but I absolutely loved it. So yeah, there's a really cool special edition. I think it's called the Caterpillar edition too. You should. I'll see if I can actually. No, I don't know how to do that. Just Google it. It's really, really cool. Beautiful looking. But the signed copy is like $6,000. $6,000. It's crazy. Oh, so good. Okay. That was 6. Number 5. Da-na-na, da-na-na. This I don't have. I'm bummed that I don't have a cool edition of this one because it is like number 5 in my list, but it is The Shining. Probably unsurprisingly. The Shining was just kind of blew my mind. You know what I mean? I'd always loved the movie. The Stanley Kubrick movie, and I went to film school, so I watched The Shining. I've seen The Shining movie probably 20 plus times, and so I was like, do I even read the book? Like, the movie is so burned into my brain. The book, I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's better. The book is better. I know it's Stanley Kubrick. I know it's Jack Nicholson. I know it's a classic horror movie, but the book is better. It's got so much more heart. The ending is different for the better. You really get. I don't want to give anything away, but you just there's without giving anything away, there's just more heart and there's more understanding, and you get a better sense of like, oh, this is what's happening. Whereas I think in the movie they kind of stripped away a lot of that heart stuff, and it kind of left the movie feeling very cold. And it's really good, guys. Really, really good. And again, if you have never read Stephen King and you have the opportunity to read The Shining and then go right into Doctor Sleep, it is a really cool 1-2 punch. I would highly recommend doing that. Number 5 is The Shining. Okay, now we are. Wait, was that number 5 or was that number 4 or 6? Wait, where am I? No, yeah, I was number 5. Okay, so top 4. These are the heavy hitters. These are the heavy hitters. Okay, a lot of you, I'm assuming, are going to be able to guess the top 4. But at 4, I am going with. I don't know if this is going to surprise people, but we're going Misery. Misery for number 4. Now, I was kind of surprised at Misery at number 4 because if anybody just kind of stops me on the street, no one stops me on the street, but if anybody was to stop me on the street and say like, hey, favorite Stephen King book, go. Misery and Pet Sematary are just going to pop into my brain so quickly, automatically, because I recommend them so much to people who haven't read Stephen King and want to get into it. They are just the 2 books I think that will kind of transport you into the Stephen King universe in a very bold and big way, and will just kind of change your mind on him forever. So Misery, I'm going number 4. Just a brilliant book, claustrophobic as hell, and really, really genuinely scary, with my favorite scary horror character ever in Kathy Bates. I always want to call her Kathy Bates, but Annie Wilkes. Annie Wilkes is just a terrifying person, and this book will just this is like writing, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of moments in this where Paul Sheldon, the writer, is like kind of coming in and out of these drug induced comas and stuff like that. And the way that Stephen King writes those are, he was probably on some of that stuff himself, so I don't know if that helped, but it is like if so, like, oh my god, like it is so brilliantly done. So number 4, we are going Misery. Okay, we are getting to the top 3. How exciting. I'm always like, I'm always like, when I'm doing these YouTube videos, I'm always like, oh my gosh, how am I going to talk for like 15 plus minutes? Like this is like going to be impossible. And then I start doing it. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. I don't know if the videos are like a little too fluffy, if I kind of am almost talking too much, but you guys let me know. Feedback's important. Okay. Number 3. I feel like this is a lot of people are going to be like, what? You might be able to tell from the thickness. We're going It. It is going to be my number 3. I struggled with this one because I love it. I love this book. This book is so big. Like this freaking book, it's like it's 1,150 pages. I guess this is about the same size as The Stand, actually. So, oh my gosh, just it's so chunky that you just get completely sucked into it. You're sinking your teeth, your fangs right into this for such a long time that everything just kind of hits you a lot harder. And due to that, I was like, do I put this at 2, 1? Like, where do I put this? But I'm gonna put it at number 3 because the next 2 just really hold a special place in my heart. And it is just. If you've not read It, you got to read It. Set aside a month of your life, maybe 2 months of your life, depending on how fast you read, and read this book. It's a literary masterpiece. Like it really, really is. And it sounds kind of funny because I think, a lot of people think of It and they think of Tim Curry's Clown and the recent movies. And those are really fun, great movies. But, this book, it's not really like campy horror, like ha 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 ha. It's genuinely really, really beautifully done. It's just a beautiful book. And It is number 3. I'll leave it at that. Okay, number 2. Oh man, here we are. Some people know it. Number 2 is Pet Sematary. We are doing Pet Sematary. Let's see if that focuses. I had to put Pet Sematary at 2. This was my struggle. I was like, do I really put Pet Sematary ahead of It, ahead of, The Shining, some of these books? But this is just, it was one of the first Stephen King books that I read, and one of the first Stephen King books where I was really kind of like, I read the last page and just kind of like sat there for a bit, staring out at the sky, and I was like, wow. I think my life just changed. I was like, this is my favorite author now. I think this is the book that did that. I was just like, I think this is for me. Like, I think this is my favorite thing ever. This guy. So again, I kind of talked about this book in another video. I don't think I need to go too far into it. Just a brilliant horror, like just punchy horror movie. Horror book. I still have not seen the movie. Actually, I've never seen the Pet Sematary movie. I hear it's actually one of the better ones, but not seen it. But the book will just. If you don't like this book, like I don't know, I don't know if we can be friends. But yeah, number 2. Sorry, I'm getting all flustered. I need some more lemongrass tea. This is the problem. All right, guys. So down to number 1. Now, I know a lot of you are already you know what it is. I'm gonna bring it in. 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This is my number 1, and I would say it's not even really that close for me. This is when I was making this list. Of my top 10 favorite Stephen King books to date. The only one that I knew for sure, and I knew the for sure placement, was this one. I was like, well, 11/22/63 is number 1. Let's figure everything else out. This book just absolutely transported me, quite literally, to another world, another dimension, another just space in my brain that I didn't know existed. I loved this book so much. And, I'm a bit of a... I'm a bit of like a history guy, you know. Not really. Like I enjoy history and like that kind of stuff. So this was just kind of added bonus that this is kind of just to give you like a little rundown. It's basically this guy who through a friend at a diner basically gets transported back to the 60s. Sorry, to the 50s, 50s and 60s, and the thing that I really like about it is that they don't really explain the portal. You know what I mean? It's there and it exists and it's a thing, but they don't like Stephen King doesn't really spend much of any time at all like kind of trying to explain why it's there. You know what I mean? It's just there. And it's perfect. It's perfect because we don't need to know why. We don't need to know why or how this could exist. It's not important. It's not important. What's important is that he gets back to the 50s and the story begins. And my goodness gracious, guys. So to give you a quick rundown, he's basically sent back to the 50s. He's got to wait until this date to stop JFK from being assassinated because he thinks it's going to help better the rest of the world and save hundreds, if not millions of lives. And so that's basically his goal. But he can't go to 63. He's going to like 59 or I can't remember exactly, 58, 59. And so he's basically got to live there for 4 or 5 years before he can do what he needs to do. And so in that time, he meets friends. There's friends, there's love, there's experiences, there's heartbreak, there's mistakes, there's so many things happen, and it's just it's really beautiful. Like it's a gorgeous book. And I think a lot of people who read Stephen King, a common complaint is like, oh, like I love him so much, but like the endings always fall a little flat for me. I personally don't agree with that. I don't think there's many endings I've read in any of these books anyways where I was not just over the moon pleased with. But this one specifically is maybe the best ending I've ever read of any book so far. It is so touching and heartbreaking but heartwarming at the same time. You just want to cry. You just kind of sit there and you're just like, all right, yeah. Right. It's just it's one of those, and I think about it all the time. And 11/22/63 is one of the most brilliant books ever written, I'm convinced of. And so if you have not read it, you have to. I'm telling you right now, you need to go buy it and you need to read it and change your life because it's that good. One of my favorite love stories ever. So, so that's my top 10, guys. I hope you liked it. That one a little longer than I had anticipated, but yeah. So I mentioned I was going to throw in like some of the books. There was actually just one, well, maybe two, but the one that I was really kind of bummed out I couldn't find a spot for in the top 10 was Fairy Tale. Fairy Tale is one of his newer books, and I really loved Fairy Tale. I thought it was really, really fun. From beginning to end. I loved the first 200-300 pages with the young boy and the old man and Radar. It was just it was a really fun book. I'm sad I couldn't find a spot for that one, but that would probably be 11, I guess, if we had to continue on. But don't if you've had your eye on Fairy Tale, because it's very easy to find. That's one you can still like find at corner stores often, I find. And pick it up, man. It's really, really good. That's a really good book. I read that actually last winter during snowstorms, just like cozy in my bed, and it was just a really cozy, nice time. So yeah, I'm going to continue on with The Stand. I'm going to continue on with Stephen King in general. There's a few other big ones I want to read, like The Green Mile. I have not read. What's another big one? Like probably The Talisman is probably another big one that I still need to read. But so I will update this video on this list eventually, but that is what it is for now. I'd love to hear your thoughts, love to hear your favorite Stephen King books are. And I love you.